Kakalosh Boker Tov, we're going to be continuing on Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, which is 96A1. The Gemara says, Viva Itema. If you want, we could actually understand the machloke between Tanakama and Gamliel. Dechule alma latzet lo bayek chavana. According to everybody, they say to be Yotzei Chovah that you do not need kavana. Okay, so if you want to come and you want to fulfill a mitzvah, you don't need kavana to fulfill the mitzvah. But over here, la'avor mishum bal tosif kamipalgeh. Here the entire question is, they're arguing about the yisur of bal tosif. Remember, bal tosif means I cannot add on to the mitzvot. Okay, the Tanakama savar, because Tanakama holds la'avor mishum bal tosif u'bay kavana. To be over on bal tosif, you don't need kavana to be over on bal tosif. So for example, let's say I'm going to stay in the sukkah for an extra day. And I'm eating in the sukkah. So that's bal tosif. So he says, Gamliel savar, la'avor mishum bal tosif by kavana. According to Gamliel, you need kavana to be over on bal tosif. V'ibay tema, or you could answer. I de svira lan, the Shabbat zman tefillin. If you're going to tell me that there's a concept that Shabbat is a time of tefillin, dechule alma shelo la'avor by kavana. According to everybody, right, that's what we're trying to say, shelo la'avor, not you do. So he says, in such a case, he says like this. He says, "V'lo latzet by kavana," and not to be Yotzei Chovah. You also need kavana. V'hacha bela'avor shelo bizmano kamipalgeh. But here the machloket is, what about if you're going to be over shelo bizmano, not on the proper time? Okay, so that's here an isur of bal tosif, not at the appropriate time. Tanakama holds that even if it's not the appropriate time, lo by kavana, you don't need kavana. And therefore, if a person put on two zugot, two pairs of tefillin, he's over on bal tosif on the second pair. Yeah? But Rabbi Gamliel savar, Rabbi Gamliel says, la'avor shelo bizmano by kavana. Yeah? To be over on shelo bizmano, you do need kavana. So says the Gemara, hihachi if so. Le Rabbi Meir, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, zug echad nami lo. If you're going to have one pair of tefillin, also you don't need it. Ve'od, and furthermore, hayashen b'shemini b'sukkah. If right now, if somebody's going to sleep on the 8th day in the sukkah, yilke, they should get lashes. But rather, it's going to be barur, right, that we're talking about here, that like we said previously, that Tanakama and Gamliel, they're arguing if Shabbat is the time of tefillin or not the time of tefillin. Okay? Fine. Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, 96A. Tzadik Vav. We stopped. We started today on Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph. Okay? So now we're by Uman Shamatle. Okay? It's around 13 lines down. Uman Shamat le Shabbat Zman Tefillin. Who's the one that says that Shabbat is the time of Tefillin? It's Rabbi Kiva. The time as we learned to the Braita. V'shamarta et hachukah azot lemoadah miyamim yamima. What does that mean? Yeah, that if you're going to watch over the chukah lemoadah, right, which is the time which is appropriate to it, miyamim yamima, miyom liyom. So it says yamim velo lelot. So we say from the words yamim, we learn yamim, velo lelot. Mi yamim, velo kol yamim. So when it says yamim, it means that we only have to put on the tefillin during the day and not during the night. When it says mi yamim, it's coming to exclude not kol yamim. What is it coming to exclude? Shabbatot v'yamim tovim. These are the words of Rabbi Yosef HaGalileh. Okay? So he says, Rabbi Akiva says, Lo ne'emar chukah zo el alinyan Pesach bilvad. Says Rabbi Akiva, this chok is only to do with Korban Pesach, right? And not to do with tefillin. So it comes out that according to Rabbi Akiva, there is no makor which is going to come and tell us that mitzvah tefillin is not on Shabbat and Yom Tov. So says the Gemara, but 1 second. We learned in Kritut, Pesach v'milah mitzvah taseh. The Korban Pesach and Brit Milah is a mitzvah taseh. And you're not going to be chayav, right, al shigatan chatat. So lema de lo Rabbi Akiva. Why don't we just say it's not like Rabbi Akiva? Di ke Rabbi Akiva, as if it's going to be like Rabbi Akiva, Kevan de Mukila Pesach, since they came and they did it on Pesach, Lav Nami Ika ke de Rabbi Avin amar Rabbi Ilai. What, he doesn't hold of the concept of the negative commandment Rabbi Avin bar Ilai? The Amar Rabbi Avin bar Rabbi Ilai, but says Rabbi Avin bar Ilai, Akol makom shneimar hishamer pen ve'al, eno elo belo ta'aseh. Whenever it says the words in the Torah, hishamer, right, which means lest you do something or be careful not to do something, pen ve'al, which are all the same lishonot, more or less, but what we're trying to say is it's a negative commandment. Okay? So since by Rabbi Akiva, it already says by the Korban Pesach, right, v'shamarta et ha'chuka azot, which in essence means you have to be careful with this chok. So it's a negative commandment, al shigrata chatat. So it comes out that the Mishnah Kritut is not like Rabbi Akiva, right? Because you just told me that Pesach b'milah is a mitzvah taseh, but there's no chatat, there's no negative commandment, and there's no, right? So therefore there's no, right? So he says over here, it's not true. Because according to Rabbi Akiva, it is. Because when it says, Yishamel lecha v'shamarta et ha'chuka azot, that's already a negative commandment. So says the Gemara, no. Afilu teima Rabbi Akiva, Hishamer de lav, right? Hishamer da aseh. No. Says Rabbi Akiva, his shita is, the word Hishamer, it all depends what it's referring to. If the word Hishamer is referring to a negative commandment, meaning it's talking about a negative commandment, so then it's a negative commandment. If the word Hishamer is on that you should do a positive commandment, so then it's a positive commandment. That's the shita of Rabbi Akiva. So therefore, when it says v'shamarta et ha'chuka azot, which is a positive commandment, so it comes out that it's only a positive commandment. There's no negative commandment. Okay? And again, this has to do with Pesach and not Tefillin. So says the Gemara, v'savar Rabbi Akiva, does Rabbi Akiva actually hold Shabbat zman Tefillin? That Shabbat is a time to put on Tefillin? V'tanya, we learned in a Braita. Rabbi Akiva says, right? He says, Yachol yaniach adam Tefillin Shabbat Tov. I would have thought to say that you're going to put on Tefillin on Shabbat and Yom Tov. That's only that you need an ot, which means that Tefillin are there as a sign. The sign is only something that needs an ot. Yatsu elu, this comes to exclude Shabbat and Yom Tov, shen gufanot, that they themselves are already a sign. So you see that according to Shitat Rabbi Akiva, Shabbat is not a time of Tefillin. So the Gemara says, Elahai Tana hu de Tanya, but it's another Tana. Because we learned in a Braita that says, Aneor balayla, Ratza choletz, Ratza, meniach, Divrei Rabbi Natan. According to Shitat Rabbi Natan, what happens right now if a person's still up at nighttime and he still has tefillin on? So if he wants, he could take it off. And if he wants, he could just leave them on. These are the words of Rabbi Natan, which means that not because it's nighttime, you have to take off the tefillin. Okay? Yonatan HaKitoni omer, em manechin tefillin belayla. You do not put on tefillin balayla. Okay? Midelayla le Tanakama zman tefillin. So the fact that Tanakama, it's zman tefillin, so Shabbat nami is zman tefillin. So according to that, also Shabbat is zman tefillin. So says the Gemara, no. Dilma svile, maybe you hold Laila zman tefillinu. Shabbat laz, maybe be'emet nighttime is, but not Shabbat. Tashamina le Rabbi Akiva damar, because we heard the Rabbi Akiva saying, Laila zman tefillinu, Shabbat laz zman tefillinu. It does exist that you're allowed to put on tefillin at nighttime, but you don't put on tefillin on Shabbat. So says the Gemara, you're right. Ela haytanahu, this is a Tana. The Tana we learned to the Braita. Michal bat Kushi, hayta manachat tefillin. Interesting name, no?
Yeah. Is it a woman?
It was Michal bat Shaul, the wife of David HaMelech. It says here, Michal hayta bat Shaul HaMelech, the wife of David, and David mechanet Shaul Kushi ben Yemini. Right? That's what he referred to Shaul as Kushi ben Yemini. So the Gemara explains, Kavanat of Danim, just like the Kushi is different in his skin, right? Just like by Haisha Kushit, by Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe. Av Shaul was Meshuneh Mishan Anasham Mitzad Ma'asav Shetzadik Gamuru. So David HaMelech is calling Shaul HaMelech, the one that was running after him to kill him, he was calling him a Tzadik Gamur. That's why he says he's Kushi. He's a Kushi. Yeah? So he says, so Michal is Michal bat Kushi.
Black life matters?
Yes. So here it says that Michal bat Shaul, right? So Michal bat Shaul hayta menachat tefillin. She used to put on tefillin. Velo michu velo michu chachamim. Right? And they did not go against her. V'ishto shel Yonah hayta ola laregel. The wife of Yonah ben Amittai, a Navi, used to do aliyah laregel. Velo michu chachamim. The fact that chachamim did not come and not rebuke Michal bat Shaul was putting on tefillin, Alma kasav mitzvah taseh shelo zman gama. So it's obviously it's mitzvah shelo zman gama. Why are women exempt from tefillin? Because it's a positive commandment that's time bound. If it's not time bound, they're chayavot. So here, the fact that they didn't rebuke him, it means it's not time bound. So you can put it on whenever you want. So there's the proof. So says the Gemara, no, v'dilma savela, maybe he holds Rabbi Yoseh nashim somchot reshut. Maybe he holds like Rabbi Yoseh, Tzadik Vav Amubet, 96b, that says that women, they are allowed to be somech b'torat reshut, which means they're allowed to do semicha if they wanted to, even though they're patur. Which means we know that when you bring an animal, you have to lean on the animal. Okay, but now women do not do the leaning. But even though they don't do the leaning, here the old Rabbi Yosef that if they wanted to, they're allowed to do the leaning. So the same halacha would apply that if women wanted to apply the mitzvot, even though it's a mitzvot, they're allowed to if they wanted to. So says the Gemara, okay? If you're not going to say this, well, you think the wife of Yonah went and she used to do aliyah l'regel and they didn't rebuke her? What is there even a mandamar that holds that it's mitzvah? That means obviously, right? That what does that mean? That the aliyah l'regel is not mitzvah tashes as mangama. That women are going to be obligated. So for sure it's a mitzvah tashes, but it's shalosh regalim. Shalosh regalim are time bound. So it says the Gemara, "Ela kasavar reshut, achenami reshut." It's a reshut. So 2 years it's a reshut, which means that if they wanted to, they're allowed to do it. But it's not that they're obligated to do it. So it says the Gemara, "Ela haytana." So now we still have to find a tana that holds that you could still put on tefillin on Shabbat or on nighttime. So he says, Elahai Tanahi, but this is very interesting because if somebody's going to ask you, who's the woman that used to do aliyah l'regel? You're going to remember the wife of Yonah. Okay? And who is the one that used to put on tefillin? You're not going to tell me the daughter of Rashi, but you're going to tell me Michal bat Shaul. Also. But one's from the Torah, one's the Rishonim. Yeah? So he says, Elahai Tanahi, the Tanya motzet tefillin. Right? The Tana says, what happens if a person comes and he finds tefillin? Machnisan zugzu. So he's going to put them in one by one. Echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha, whether it's the man or the woman. Echad chadashot or echad yeshanot, whether it's new or old. These are the words that Rabbi mean. Rabbi Yehuda said, b'chadashot, in new ones. Umatir b'yeshanot. And he's going to permit in the old ones. So ad kan lo plige ela b'chadashot v'yeshanot. That's only going to be with the new ones or the old ones. Aval b'isha lo plige, but to do with a woman, nobody's arguing, right? Both of them hold that a woman's allowed to put it on and to bring it inside the city. Shemami, now we learn from you. They're obligated. So says the Gemara the same thing. Who told you they're obligated? Maybe it's a shoot. Just like we said before, it's they're allowed to. Not that they're obligated to, they're allowed to. So says the Gemara, lo sal kadaitach. Right? We're not going to hold this. Why? How do we know that Rabbi Meir does not hold like Rabbi Yosef? Because we learned in the Mishnah, on Rosh Hashanah, we allow the children to come and start blowing on Rosh Hashanah, and we don't stop them from blowing on Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because that's the chinuch. What does that mean? On Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to come and I'm going to blow the shofar. Now, we know that even though I'm going to come and I'm going to blow the shofar, we know that I'm not allowed to blow the shofar after I've fulfilled the mitzvah. Because it's a shvut, which means I'm not allowed to stam to come. Meaning, if I already was Yitzhak Chovah, I fulfilled my obligation to get shofar, and you filled your obligation, and there's nobody here. So I'm not allowed just to come and take the shofar and start blowing. I'm not allowed to. Why? Because it's asur. However, though, children, you're allowed to. Children, you let them. They're going to be blowing and blowing and blowing. Let them do whatever they want. Why? Mitzvat chinuch. So it says here, hanashim, me'akvin, but women, you do stop them from blowing the shofar in Rosh Hashanah. So stam matnitin, Rabbi Meir. So it comes out, the stam mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. Okay, because that's the usual. The usual is if you have a mishnah, there's no author, it goes according to Rabbi Meir. So it comes out that Rabbi Meir argues on Rabbi Yosef, because if you're going to hold like Rabbi Yosef, why? It's a shoot. They're allowed to if they wanted to. So why are you going to stop them? Rabbi Yehuda also doesn't hold like Rabbi Yosef. The time is we learned in the Braita, the Bnei Yisrael v'samach. What does that mean? You speak to Bnei Yisrael. V'samach yado al rosh ha'olah. He does semicha. He leans on the animal. So from here we learn Bnei Yisrael somchim, because it's Bnei Yisrael, which are the males, Vem Benot Yisrael somchot, not Benot Yisrael. Okay, that means that the girls don't do it. So it says here, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon Omen. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon say, Nashim somchot reshut. They're allowed to do it. Ustam sifra mani. Who is the stam sifra? Rabbi Yehuda. Meaning, we remember that the stam, there's a stam Mishnah, Rabbi Meir. Right? Stam sifra, Rabbi Yehuda. Right? So here it's saying it's Rabbi Yehuda. So the fact that the Tanakama, which is Rabbi Yehuda, does not hold like Rabbi Yosef, so that's how we know. So Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, Hamotzet tchelet bashuk. What happens if a person comes and he finds a tzitzit in the shuk? Yeah, tchelet. He has the blue strings on it even. So it says over here, Leshonot psulot, vechutin ksherim. So he says the tzemer in itself was pasul, okay, because it wasn't done l'shem mitzvah. It wasn't done for the mitzvah. But the chutin was kosher for the mitzvah. So says the Gemara, because it wasn't done lishma. When you color, when you dye a tzitzit, it has to be done lishma. No. Okay, but the chutin were done lishma. Yeah, they're calling lishonot. Okay, because they look like lishonot. They look like long strings. So the lashon shel zehorit. So they look like a long.
Sorry, Rav, I didn't understood that. It cannot allow to paint the. Can you repeat that part?
When you paint, whether it's going to be tzitzit or tefillin, you have to do it lishma. If you do not do it lishma, it's pasul. So, for example, you see this? What's this? Whiteout, no?
Yes. To clean, no?
Yeah, there's whiteout, no? No, so it's blackout. It's not whiteout. Yeah, we're going back to what Jean-Jacques said before. Yeah, what happens is that, the concept here is that it says it over here. Bechsher, whatever it is. And then on the bottom it says, right, that before putting it on, you have to say, L'shem kidushat tefillin. What does that mean? I'm going to come, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to paint. If I come and I paint my tefillin black without saying L'shem kidushat tefillin, you can make it pasul. What? Even a tikkun. This is a tikkun. L'shem kidushat tefillin. You have to say it before.
Yeah, but
well, it depends. It depends. If it was pasul and now you do it, yes. If it's just some thing, it could be b'diavad. It's going to be okay. Okay. So therefore,
it's like I just watch Sammy teaching to my brother to do something. And it says something like you need to make those words and also to think in the name of Hashem, the 4 letters.
No, you don't have to think of the name of Hashem in the 4 letters. But for example, when you're making tzitzit or you're doing tefillin, even when you're making tzitzit, what do you have to say at the beginning? L'shem mitzvah tzitzit. Yeah, when I'm going to start making tzitzit, I come, I take the strings, I say L'shem mitzvah tzitzit, and I start. On tefillin is kiddushat tefillin, because it's kiddusha. It's tashvishe kiddusha, right?
Okay.
So it's tashvishe mitzvah. So tzitzit is L'shem mitzvat tzitzit, and tefillin is L'shem kiddushat tefillin. So therefore, here what we're trying to say is that you found the tzitzit, but it was pasul, right? However, though, you found the chutin, which are made for the tzitzit, which is a tchelet and everything, they were kosher for the mitzvah. So says the Gemara, Ma'ishna leshonot, Tamar adaita deglima tzavinu, chutinami nema adaita deglima tzavinu. Says, 1 second, what's the difference between that's what he's saying over here, what's the difference between the mitzvah tzitzit and the chutin ksherim? He says, I'm going to say that just like one of them, I was doing it for the beged and not for the tzitzit. So to the chutim, I was doing it for the beged and not for the tzitzit. So says the Gemara, b'shizurim, we're talking about that they were intertwined. Meaning when you take a tzitzit, right, you realize that when it starts unraveling, it's many different threads coming and put together. Yeah, it's not one thread. You understand or not?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay. These are the ones. Okay. So now says the Gemara, Shzurim nami nema daita de shifta de glima ifinu. The sifta de glima ifinu. He says, 1 second, even if it's going to be that they were intertwined, I'm going to say that you did it in order to be kafalotam, in order to come, just like when you come and you're putting at the end of the clothing, you put a rim. You put like the edge. How do you call it? The hem, no? Hem coming upwards. Yeah? So he says the same thing. So the answer is the Gemara, b'mufsakin. We're talking about that they were already cut. You're not going to come and start coming and tying it together and start doing all these things. So Amar Rava says, is a person going to start mamash going ad kedekach to make a kamiya like tefillin? The Tanam, as we learned in the Mishnah, but one of these words be shanot, right? In old tefillin. But if it's going to be chadash, no. Why? Because maybe it's a kamiya and it's not tefillin. Does a person actually do that? Amar bizera le'avar berei. He says bizera to avar san. Puk tani lehu. Go out and teach it. Hamotzet chelet bashuk leshonot psulin chutin mufsakin kshanin lefi shenadam toreach. So no, go and teach it. If you find chelet in the shuk and they look like leshonot, so it's going to be psulin for mitzvah tzitzit. But if it's going to be already chutin mufsakin, which means mamash small pieces, not just like a big piece, it was small pieces of the tzitzit. So then, yes, it's going to be kosher. Why? Because the person is not going to come and be toreach and start doing all these things if it wasn't be'emet to become tzitzit. So Amar Rava says, he says what? That you're going to start coming and putting on it different nizamim, meaning that it has to be correct. Nobody could argue on him. But Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah, medvonimunim, yishanot, only if it's old, not if it's new. So El Amar Rava, but rather Rava says, tarach velo tarach t'naihi. If a person was tarach and not tarach, or is toreach or not toreach, then in itself is actually going to be a machloket. So he says, the time was learned in Raita. Hamotzet tefillin machnisan zug zug. If a person finds tefillin, he brings them in zug zug. What does that mean? Right? Pair by pair, not together, but rather pair by pair. Echad ha'isha, echad ha'isha, whether it's a man or a woman. So the Gzayin Amud Aleph, echad chadashov, echad yishanot, whether it's new or old, these are words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says it's going to be asur b'chadashot u'tav yishanot. Alma. More savar tarachinish, more savar lo tarachinish. So it comes out that one of Madam holds that the person would do it. He would be toreach to even to do this. And the other Madam says he's not going to be toreach to do this. So therefore, because there's a machloket whether the person's toreach or not, that's why it's coming out over here that we're going to be that's the machloket between them. Are we going to suspect that a person will come and to do ad kedekach or not? So that's the machloket that we're having over there. Fine. So tomorrow, Blineda, we continue with. So the exam
very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye.
Very interesting.
Call to.